Hey everyone, welcome to Tint Wisdom. Today I'm joined with Pierre, co-founder of ASWF Window Film. Pierre, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, you know, one of the many reasons that I wanted to chat with you today was I feel like your wisdom in this sort of market and economy that we may be entering into is could be a very valuable perspective. And the reason I say that is because, to my best understanding, ASWF was something that you launched and took off in our previous down economy. So you're no stranger to down economies and getting through them and getting pushing through them. So I wanted to get your thoughts, and if anybody watching has questions, of course, just drop them in the comments and we'll get them asked. So,
Well, again, thank you. Thank you for having me here. So, go ahead.
so yeah, why don't we get started with just a little background of how you got into the window film industry?
Well, we started mostly with exports. So, we were doing export internationally. My partner was actually living in Russia, and they said, well, there's an interesting need for this kind of product. So, why don't we start buying from United States and selling? So, like a very quick overview, that's how we got into it. That's how I got into it. We started buying and selling, and I've worked with every manufacturer out there, and so kind of slowly went from being a distributor to actually owning a retail shop, distributor, international, and then we kind of said, okay, it's time. We're big enough. We need to have our own factory, and we kind of switched into making our own film at the best time in the world. When the market was crashing.
Yeah, so you bring up making your own film. So you guys, it's something that gets brought up a lot. Is who makes the film with manufacturers? And to my understanding, you make your own film. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. We have the factory in Las Vegas, Nevada. Anyone who's been to Vegas should have been to our factory. If you haven't been to our factory, let us know when you're there. We'll be more than happy to give you guys a tour. You'll see how the film is actually made. I still, every time I go there, which is very, very often,
Mhm.
I will do a tour and go and check it out because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I haven't actually seen the process being made, but it's something that, based on how many people ask, they ask about manufacturers, and the question always is, where do you make your film? Who makes your film? That's such a common question. So, you're the first person I've spoken to that says we make our own film, and being able to display that process to tinters, I think, is clearly something that they probably found valuable.
It's well, I mean, manufacturing is it's an art to its own. So it's not the easiest thing. Fortunately, we have a facility that's state of the art. We're the only company in the world that makes it in one pass. It starts raw material and it gets finished, packaged, comes out in 100-foot rolls and gets boxed right out of the machine. So it's a pretty advanced facility, and because of that, we do very well, and we do make for a lot of private label companies as well. So, and there's nothing wrong with private label companies.
Right, because there's value adds on all the same way tin companies differentiate themselves with their customers. It's the same idea. You could have two ASWF dealers, and they can go against the same job, and they have different value adds as a company. So this I think it's worth pointing out that the same way, you know, um, companies strive to separate themselves, even if they're carrying the same film as a shop down the street. It can go for private labeling too. There's different ways to add value to a film beyond just the film. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And well, I believe in relationships. So even I have relationships with my competition. I help them. I've supported them even when I was a distributor. Somebody would have an issue with shipping, even though they're my competitors. I mean, I think there is a lot to be said about working with your competition, and that's one of the things sometimes that surprises me, that I see tinters compete on a level that it not only hurts them but just the industry. So, and I know it's it's wishful thinking that everyone's going to get along and everyone's going to work together. And but I think healthy competition is always good. There's nothing wrong with that. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you say wishful thinking, I think it's the direction that things are moving. If we get there, who knows? But it feels like it's more in that direction than it's ever been.
I think so. I think so. So let's see. And especially given the timing, I think people are kind of becoming more in tune with reality,
Mm-hmm.
and not so much of made up stories, because this is real. What we're going through, it's real, and it's unprecedented.
Right. In time, nothing like a crisis to bring people together, whether,
Absolutely. Absolutely, because then you appreciate help and you value people who stick by you and they do things that support you and help you get through tough times. And I don't know. I don't want to get too sentimental, but you kind of appreciate that a lot more in tough times. When things are good, you don't care.
100%. So, given everything, like the fact that you make everything in the United States and in your own facility, does that, I imagine, give you a little more comfort moving forward with being able to supply dealers? Because I have heard other window film manufacturers running short on certain films and so on. I don't know if that has to do with overseas and so on, but does it give you more of a sense of control of your manufacturing, I imagine?
Okay, if I tell you I have a sense of control today, I'll be completely lying. So, I don't think anybody has any control nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But in comparison, absolutely. Our products are all made in USA. Our raw materials are made in USA. So, short of our suppliers not being able to supply, which so far I haven't seen that. The only thing that I see happening is people managing orders, because just as our orders are down, we ordered less to our vendors, and the vendors need to plan for what they need to manufacture and produce to have it available for us. So that's the only part that concerns me a little bit, because if we get a spike all of a sudden in a month and we start buying like before, that could become an issue. But at this point, I'm not worried about that. Again, we're stocked up. We have plenty of raw material. We're in very good shape going forward. So I think we're fine. And as I said, we do everything domestic. Thank you very much. I got a latte delivered by my daughter.
Oh,
so this is the perks of staying at home.
No, well, I do think that the world will, like, I've always been a fan of working from home. From the beginning of my life, I just like my working life. I've always set myself up to try to work from home. Sometimes that wasn't possible, but when it is, I love working from home, and I feel like some of the world is getting to see like the perks of working from home and the added productivity. Like, yes, it can be a challenge to focus and to get work done, but it can also be such an advantage to be ready to work at any time and kind of be able to break up the day and so on,
Yeah, you just need to be very structured and organized. Otherwise,
right,
it's not easy. There's too much distraction. But anyway, going back, sorry for my interruption, but going back to supplies and supply chains and factories, and the issue that a lot of the companies that are not made in USA are having is delivery, because the whole entire world's delivery mechanism is in chaos. And it's not just only the delivery mechanism, it's the production is in chaos. So if you have 3-4 steps before you bring the material, you have 3 steps of chaos before you can bring it in. I like to think that we're in very, very good shape compared to the rest of the industry. And we've been supplying pretty steadily.
So do you see, tell me if you see, and if so, where you see opportunity in this, or do you see, I guess we have to start with, do you see opportunity in this uncertain environment? Of course, not given a worst case scenario, because a worst case scenario, there's little opportunity. Everybody's just in a worst case scenario. But if we see a little bit of slowdown in the market, if we see a much more health conscious and price conscious consumer, where do you, if you see opportunity, where do you, what do you see? What do you think?
From a factory standpoint or from a
From
installer dealer
from a
standpoint?
dealer standpoint.
Well, I by nature I'm an optimistic person, and I like to find opportunity in any situations. So this is, again, I keep repeating this word. It's a word. It's a word that sounds pretty cliche. It's unprecedented. I don't think any one of us in our lifetimes have ever gone through anything remotely close to something like this, that the whole world comes to a stop. So I'm speculating, and my speculation is that there are opportunities, and people who stay strong, the people who manage what they do, they don't give up. They tighten their expenses. They negotiate rents. I mean, it's basically you have to go back and find where you can save, where you can cut back. Uh, this is a time that you optimize. You absolutely have to optimize. If you can take one trip to give a bid and install, then that's what you need to do. You save money on gas. So again, I'm going into details of it, but in my mind, this is the time that you really, really need to sit down and say, what is there for me? How can I take advantage of the situation? It's very easy to get disappointed. It's certainly the environment is not, it doesn't inspire anyone today to go and start a new business. It's, kind of the doom and gloom scenario. But I will tell you, the reality is people are getting money. The government fund, the monies are getting to people. From our standpoint, I can tell you we're seeing our sales peak up really quickly. So the first 2-3 weeks was non-existent, and we're seeing the steady growth. And I think that's because people need to spend money. Restaurants are closed. Supermarkets, that's the only thing we have to go to. Bars are closed. Entertainments are shut down. So people really don't have a lot of places to spend money today. And if you own a car and now all of a sudden you're getting $1,000 a week unemployment that you didn't have before, and you have no money, no place to spend, you're going to say, maybe that's a good place to go. Let me go get my car tinted. I have nothing to do. I'm sitting at home. So I am seeing that actually happen. So I would definitely recommend, again, it's a two-pronged approach. Marketing side, you've got to be a lot more aggressive. It's a lot tougher to get business now than before. So you can't give up and say, well, no one wants to tint. That's not true. I can tell you, we're selling film. Right. I can tell you, California this week had one of the best weeks so far because we didn't do anything for the months before, but that still means that we're selling. Right. So again, in short, just be aggressive to what you're doing, cut back on expenses. This is not the time to expand on warehouses and expenses, but I think there's definitely opportunities.
Yeah, like you said, cut back on expenses and then just work your butt off on marketing any way in every way possible. Don't give up on the idea that like nobody's spending money, because as you said that, I really kind of rethought about the decision. Like on one aspect, you can make the argument, okay, if people are short on money and they're late on their rent and so on, or they're prorating their rent over now the next year or whatever it is, they might not spend money on window tint for their car. But I could also make I feel like even a stronger argument, which was what I was thinking as you were saying that, which is, once you have window tint on a car, you get very used to it. And if your car doesn't have it, if you get a new car, because how many people are getting new cars now with 3 months, no payments, and maybe a 3 months after that to credited payment, all this, you're getting a new car, you're used to window tint. You're not going to, it feels like a necessity. It doesn't really feel like a luxury. It's not going to the movies or going out to dinner. It's like, I need it when I drive.
Yeah. And also keep in mind one thing. I know a lot of us live month to month, and we go, okay, this is a great month. So how many cars can I do today? How many cars can I bring in this week? And the week goes by, and then you're kind of done with that week. I challenge everyone to think further along. This is a time that you can position yourself to really capture market share going forward, because now everything is in chaos. Mm-hmm. So it's the wild, wild west. So this is where you can actually plan for the month or 2 months later when things open up even more. So don't just think and say, okay, how can I make a lot more money today? Like, what can you do to position yourself for tomorrow? Dealerships are not doing much. Why don't you, maybe this is a good time to go and talk to the dealerships that they wouldn't even return your phone calls before. Again, I'm just given the situation. Every company is in a different position. Some tinters don't even want to deal with dealers. But just think long term. What can you do to bring business and capture market share so you can be in better position once the door opens and everybody's back to normal?
Yeah.
Because that's not an easy thought. And I know sometimes we're so focused on, we're cash poor, we don't have money today, we got to make sure the bill is paid this month. And I get that. Trust me, people think just because you own a factory and you're much bigger, you don't have the same problems. Well, that problems are, as you go up the food chain, it just gets bigger. So it's the same issues and same concerns, it just gets bigger. Same thing for me today. If definitely I'm concerned about the future. I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to continue paying our payments and pay the payrolls? But I don't sit back and say, hey, there's nothing left. I try to plan for the future. What can I do so 3 months later, I'm in a better spot?
Right. Because the future is going to come for sure, and you're going to be there for sure. So you might as well be planning for it and working towards it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there was a post I want to ask your opinion on. It was a post in one of the window foam groups, and it's getting a lot of replies. And the question was whether it's worth charging for consultations, and then maybe $20 or $50 for a consultation, whatever it is, $20, and then that goes towards the purchase if they go through with it. Now, I thought it was it's a question that's been asked in the past, and I see both sides to it. I just think it's an interesting timing for that type of question when so many are looking for work. The thought of charging for going out there. What are your thoughts on that? Do you see any practicality to it?
Okay. My gut feeling says no. That's my initial reaction. I think when people are trying to save money, they're not going to, especially unless everybody does it, then it's a different story. It's like now you call a Roto-Rooter, if they come and you don't give them the job, you got to pay them, I don't know, $40, $50. So that's given, expected. It's how the industry works.
Right.
I think our industry, if anything, were the other extreme. The only way we've made money was how much cheaper can I charge to attract the customer. If you look at the successful dealers, they're all charging top dollars. They're not negotiating. They're not lowballing. They're upselling. That's how you make money. But that's not the bulk of our industry. The bulk of our industry will say the guy down the street is charging $100. Now I'm going to charge $90. Oh, well, they're charging $90. I got to charge $85. And so again, I'm kind of thinking out loud. I have a hard time believing that the entire industry is going to come together and say, you know what, we're going to charge to tell you what we think you need to put on your car or in your home. Right. I think you're always going to find, all you need is 1 out of 10 to say, I'm not following, and say, free consultation. You have nothing to lose. Everybody else is charging. I'll come and do it for you for free. Mm-hmm. So, again, the idea sounds good, but I don't think it'll work. My short opinion. Maybe if you ask me tomorrow, I'll have a different opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I share your thoughts with that. The only exception I could throw out there is I say if you're a small shop, if you're a one-man band, it's just you, and you are so busy, your schedule's overflowing, and you're able to start charging, and you're still super busy, then I'd say, if your time is so valuable because you have so many customers, then you try to
Absolutely.
vet them. But I don't know how to get to that point by charging for your consultations because I think you're more than
Absolutely.
yeah, there's just so many opportunities missed. So like when people say, well, I'm still busy, I have to say, well, are you 100% busy? Because if you're 100% busy, then you're good. But if you're like 60% busy,
Yeah.
you got a problem, I think.
And here's another side. I mean, I'm looking at it from different angles on this, right? So what if, okay, let's take it this way. You charge consultation, and the guy doesn't want to have you tint a car or their home, your customer. That, in a way, it means the guy doesn't trust you or your price is not good enough. Correct? Otherwise,
Yeah.
you have the job. So if you have the job, there's no consultation involved. But if you don't have the job and you're charging somebody, to me, you're creating this negative feeling towards you. And if that guy needs something next time, if you were one of the five, now you're not anymore.
Right.
Because he's not going to come back. Again, I'm just
No,
I'm
that's
just
a good,
telling you,
good
like,
point.
because I get really upset when I have an appliance that breaks and I call somebody and I know they're just BSing and I don't need to spend $500 on a small piece because I just Googled and that piece is $25 and I can replace it. And he says, well, you got to pay me $100 for my visit.
Right.
I pay him, but I don't feel good about it. And I never want to call that guy. So do you want to get in that situation as a tint shop, as a business owner?
Right. Right. And even if it's 1 out of every 100 times, if somebody gets loud with you because they feel like, well, what is this quote? You took my money for a quote. Now this quote's so high or whatnot. That 1 in 100 times to me isn't worth it because I don't want to spend any day with somebody getting loud with me or getting a bad review or and the other thing,
Correct.
you bring up a good point about it's not just about today's sale either. It's about the second sale, the repeat business, the referral, and so on. And I think that even goes to when, maybe like I'm just saying if this ever happens where somebody maybe charges a contractor that doesn't know pricing too well, or an old lady who doesn't know pricing too well. If you want to charge a premium, you want to get what you're worth and cover your expenses, make a profit as a company and so on. But if you go beyond that and you overcharge, I think that also can be something that down the road hurts you more than it helps you.
Again, if the whole industry was that, and there's no magical switch that you can turn and everybody's going to start doing that. So if the entire industry was doing specifically that, and that was the norm, then by all means, nobody cares and you charge. But right now, that's not. In fact, it's the opposite. Everybody advertises free estimates. I'll come and give you a free estimate. Drive by anytime, and as far as I remember, we even had a problem making people keep their appointments.
Right.
Even that was an issue. We were taking deposits and they wouldn't show up for 3 months and they'd say, I changed my mind and I want my money back.
Right.
So, I remember situations where even when we are losing money because we kept a slot open for somebody and we're paying for an installer and the guy is sitting doing nothing, and it was hard to keep, money. So again, I don't know. Honestly, the more I think about it, I don't think it can work. I think the way to make money is upcharge. The way to make money is educate the people.
Right.
How to buy a better product, why it's worth spending $50, $100 buying a better film, better product, better performance rather than the low-end film.
Yeah.
And then I see it. All the shops that are successful, that's exactly what they do. They don't compete on the low end.
Right. Right. Because everybody knows that's a losing game. Obviously, like you said, most of the industry still plays that losing game for some reason, but it is the price to the bottom is a losing game. I also just thought about what would it be like if a customer calls you, you say they want a consultation, you say, okay, that's going to be a $30 charge. You'll go towards your bill, if you buy the film. they schedule with you, and then they call another company and they're like, hey, I'd like to schedule a consultation. They go, okay, it's free. And then they're like, oh, I was just charged by another company. Like they're instantly, or like
Absolutely.
if it's in person, it's even worse. They can tell you, hey, how much, what did they quote you? Say, yeah, this is great. And you just gave them such leverage
Yeah.
over you, you know?
Yeah, and with nowadays with the social media, and people are so happy to put something negative just because they think negative. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like we've had negative reports because it took us a day to send out a price list. Oh, I'll never buy from this company because I called and it took them a day to send me a price list.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, because of that, you gave us a 1 on on
Yeah.
Yelp review. It's just
Yep.
so people are very easy and fast to go and say something negative, and I don't think you want to give them that opportunity.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I know something we would say on the phone. If a customer said, how much is the consultation? We'd say the consultation's completely free. We're in your area all the time. We do a lot of homes in your area, or something like along those lines, and like that sort of comfort. Like I wouldn't want to give the customer the impression that we're going out of our way to come to the customer, because our best opportunity in selling them is being in front of them. So.
Absolutely. You know what I've seen happen so many times, and again, I'm going to tell you my thoughts for whatever it's worth. If it's going to help anybody, I'll be very happy with that. Or if it helps one person, I'll be very happy with that. One of the biggest mistakes on flat glass, people walk in unprepared. I've seen tinters over and over again. They go in, they don't know what they're selling. Number one, it takes them 2 or 3 days to reply. When somebody is interested in tinting their homes, they want somebody there in the next hour, in the next day, not next day, that afternoon. Like, you want to jump. You want to make sure the sooner you go, the sooner you get the job. I remember when I had the retail thing, that was my thing. And so many times I would walk in and they'll say, oh yeah, I'm going to get 2 more estimates tomorrow. And well, if you're a good salesperson and you're already there, all you got to do is, why are you waiting for the estimate? This is why I'm the best. Here's my review. Here's the price. By the way, I'll even give you a 5% discount because I'm going to be here tomorrow and I'm doing another house down the road. I mean, all the sales techniques. When you close the deal, make sure the person signs it and cancels all the other appointments that are going to come in to give them an estimate tomorrow or the next day or 3 days later. And just whoever gets first, you're going to get the job.
Right. 100%. Somebody inquires on Yelp. If like a customer inquires on Yelp, they make it very easy to get quotes from multiple companies. If one of those companies gets back to the customer 5 minutes later, you get back to the customer the next day, most likely they've already scheduled it, or they've already, at least they've done. It's taken care of. Somebody already took care of it, and
Absolutely.
And that impression, then, I feel like that even trickles down to dealers feeling like, oh, a lot of tire kickers, or it's just a waste of time, or these people don't know what they, or whatnot. And you start to build this false narrative of why you're not getting the jobs. And like, you might not be getting the jobs just simply like response time, the verbiage you're using, the tone of your voice, just the little things that all contribute into somebody making their decision. You have to really be open to looking at yourself and looking at your staff and really digging deep into like, is that a little offensive, or do they look sloppy, or, everything?
Absolutely. It's like anything else. If you're the customer, reverse the role. You're the customer. You're asking for somebody to come and give you a bid. What would you want to see? I mean, that's what I always ask. Like, would I want someone coming in and not being professional? I mean, I'll say something as stupid as, coming in smoking like, smelling like a cigarette. Well, what if the guy doesn't like cigarettes?
Yep.
You just gotta assume that you gotta go in as neutral, as clean cut, as, maybe it's not you. Maybe you're the person in shorts and t-shirts and don't care about anything, but that's not how you get the job.
Right. So, and you have to question it, and you have to say, do I want to make a fashion statement, or do I want to just do whatever is going to get the job? And if you want to make a fashion statement, that's fine. But I think more than likely, most people just want to get the job. So like, you just have to evaluate those things and do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll be the first to admit my lip ring would make me a terrible consultant because I can already know that a certain amount of people are going to judge it right off the bat. And regardless of my thoughts on that, knowing that, I know that I'm not the best person to do that job or that has to come out. It really is that simple to me. I think even in California, maybe other states are like this too, but I'll pick on California. I think you have a good amount of people who don't even like the smell of like perfume or like cologne. Like they don't want any
Oh
sort
yeah.
of fragrances coming into their home.
I'll say something about some of the things you can definitely eliminate. As I said, I would make sure I look sharp, clean, don't smell like pot and cigarettes, and I don't sit in the car and finish the end and then walk into somebody's home, and we're laughing about it, but I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen so many times. And even the tinters walk in, they're about to tint, and they go, oh, let me just finish, and they just walk in, and But and a lot of times, you're talking about your lip ring. A lot of times you can very comfortably, some people don't like tattoos, but you can, not apologize, but you can make sure that the person is not offended by it. Because at the end of the day, that's all it's about. You want people to trust you for who you are, and you don't need to change. You don't need to, change your hairstyle because you're going to get the job, but just make sure you have the respect that people can respect back.
Yeah.
It's, I know it's common sense, and but sometimes we don't. I've seen it happen. That's the only reason I'm sharing it.
Yep. And I think one of the things that it has to almost be drilled into anybody who smokes, whether you smoke cigarettes, you smoke anything, like you don't know how much it smells. So like number one, you'll never know how much it smells because you're the one smoking. So you have no concept. Anything you think you smell is not what other people smell. And the other one is it travels with you. So if you smoke a cigarette outside and you jump into the backseat of somebody's car to tint it, their car is going to smell like cigarettes when they get it.
It's going to smell. Absolutely.
Like you just made their car smell like cigarettes. I would be super pissed. Like, and I don't even mind smoking. I come from a family of smokers. Doesn't mean I want my brand new car to smell like cigarettes.
Car to smell, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, these are small points, but these are the things that makes the difference.
Yep.
This is what actually makes the difference between people coming back or not coming back, or walking away happy and telling their friend and brother, and going the extra step to make sure that everybody knows they got their car tinted in the best possible shop, and the guy was amazing, and he was so helpful, and versus, nice shop, they might not be mad, they might not even tell you, but they're not happy.
Yep. You could almost go through everybody's Yelp reviews, look for only the bad ones, and then do the opposite of whatever the bad ones say. Promote the opposite. Whatever the bad ones say, try to emphasize that that's not what you do, to an extent. But anyway, I think some gold could be found going through Yelp reviews because, again, this is the time everybody's...
That's a very good point.
Yeah, you can see what people talk about, what people appreciate and are willing to write about, and both the positive and the negative. So, one last question I had for you. You have seen, obviously, a lot of tint dealers. You've interacted with a lot of tint dealers, both in the United States, outside the United States, and both, I would imagine, extremely successful and some not so successful. And I'm curious if anything stands out to you that's a common attribute amongst the successful ones or the not so successful ones. What sticks out to you as something either that you feel like is a common factor that makes them better or kind of maybe a detriment?
Well, I have an interesting question because in my mind I have few things, and I tell anybody who wants to start business, that's the number one thing I tell them. I've seen so many tint shops, so many tinters that you talk to them, they say, well, I'm doing this until I find a real job, or I'm doing this until something else happens, or, oh, I'm going to do this until my back gives up. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, no, you 100%. That is definitely one perspective of the industry, and
this is an industry because it's very easy to get in. All it takes is a blade and $100 You buy imported cheap film, and all of a sudden you're a tinter. So anybody can get into it. The difference between people who are successful and are not, the successful ones treat this as a real business. You walk into their shop, they have the state-of-the-art equipment. They don't cut corners. They don't cheat on raw material. They don't cheat on products and change boxes and buy one film and put something else. And they say, oh, I'm using 3M, and instead I'm putting, imported, I'm not going to name names, but something else that looks the same. Those are, in my mind, that's what sets people apart. If you take your business seriously as a real business that you want it to grow, here's another way I would say. If you can see that business growing in a way that you can hand it down to your children, then that's a business that can be successful. But if you're there just because that's the only thing you know how to do today, and you're just doing it until you find something better on the side, then you're not going to be successful. So to me, and it stands out all the time. And I see it to this day. I see people walk into our distribution centers picking up product. I overhear them. I talk to them. Oh yeah, we're tinting, but you know what? I'm thinking of starting to sell stereos on the side because tinting doesn't do this. The second you don't take the business seriously, it will do this. I guarantee you, I promise you, and I see it day in, day out. It needs to be your primary business. I know a lot of people who say I'm doing this as a side business. In my book, there's no side business. Side business means any business that's not your priority, it won't work. So, same thing. I was glad that you said your focus is doing the software, because if software, your app, if that's your side business, it'll never be successful. It can, that's my belief. So to me, that's number one. You take your business seriously. You invest in the tools. You invest in the tools that makes your job easier. If you need to spend $20 on a squeegee, then you spend $20 on a squeegee. Don't cut corners. So that's number one. Number two is don't chase the price. There's so much, when you start going towards the bottom, there's a limit. When you go up, there is no limit. When you start chasing the price going down, that's a very, very tough place to be, unless you have a very solid project that you know what you're doing. I'm going to do 500 cars this week, and I don't care if I make $10 on it, I'm still making $5,000. Perfect. Nothing wrong with that. But majority of the people are not in that situation. Every customer that walks in is a customer that you can make as much profit on it as you can. I'm not saying cheat the customer. I'm not saying lie to the customer, but don't chase the price. Upselling is the number one thing for me after taking it seriously. People who know how to upsell, they're the ones who are successful. And stop me if I'm talking too much or you want to throw another question, but this is one of my pet peeves. When people start selling anything with IR, and this IR term is being used and abused and thrown all over the place, and between ceramic and IR, nano ceramic, all made up terms, and which is fine. But when you're upselling to a better performing film, to a nano ceramic IR film, you don't need to charge $200 more. Find out what your cost is. Find out what is your cost of using the more expensive film. Every dollar that you charge more, by doing that, you've made more money.
Right.
Even if you charge $20 over your cost, then right away you've made $20 more on that particular car. This is something that I cannot explain enough. Tinters need to focus on their variable cost per type of product. If you can upsell and make $10 per car, you're ahead. don't think you're getting cheated. Don't think the customer got the better deal out of it. You don't need to make $100 just because you're upselling.
Right. So bringing down the prices of your very premium films, if it leads to a higher average sale price, if you're making a profit on that extra expense, it is absolutely the right thing to do. It's not about
Absolutely.
right. It's about the profit at the end of the day, whether it's $20 extra, $50 extra, or $10 extra.
Yeah, and it could be at any price level. I mean, I've seen it. I walk through shops and they, oh, we can't charge more than $100. People can't afford it. Well, the reality is everybody can afford an extra $10 or $20. There's no question about that.
Right.
It's just, can you sell them that the $20 that they're giving you is worth the $20 that they're going to spend? Right. And if you can do that, then they're going to spend.
Right.
But if you tell them instead of 100, now you have to pay me 250. Now you're talking about a huge gap.
Right.
And that's much harder to do. So,
right. It's like you're buying a pack of M&Ms for $1, or it's, you're getting two for $1.50. You're going to go, that's a no-brainer because it's a little jump in price. You can clearly see the value. It's when it's such a big jump and you're telling me, well, you got to buy, 100 of them. I'm going to go, that might be too much. Let me not. You have to stop. You have to stop your customers from having a little hiccup in their thought process. You got to take them with you, not stop you.
Yeah, exactly. But for some reason, this is the trend. I see it day in, day out. People say, oh, if I charge this much more, if I'm using, IR film that's costing me X amount more, then I have to make 10 times more if I'm installing it on a car.
Exponentially.
But that's not the case.
Right.
There's no formula like that. If your cost of the film, I'm just throwing out numbers, it's $50. If you use the $50 material and you've charged $60 more, you just made $10 more without doing anything more.
Right. And
that's the art of upselling. Now, if you can upsell every customer to $250 because you're in an area that you can, or $300 or $400, then so be it.
Right.
But don't settle for the cheap one, because the lower you go, the margins become smaller. Then you got to do 10 more cars to make up the difference.
Right. Right. And you're not able to necessarily afford to provide the service that a higher end, bigger budgeted person's willing to spend. So if you're chasing to the bottom, you have small margins. Well, you might not have money to buy new chairs for your waiting room. You may not be able to put snacks or coffee in your waiting room. You may not have any money to put out Facebook ads. You may not have you're not going to have any money to do anything. And so you have to have that margin in there. I think you hit the nail on the head with the biggest differences between the successful and the not with those couple points.
And I would go even expand on the brands. And I'm not promoting my company at this point. Of course, I would love everybody to buy our product, but that's not what I'm doing. But weigh your options. Just because a product is, you pay $30 less a roll, or even $50 less a roll, that doesn't mean that that's going to make you money, because you got to make sure that what you're buying and what you're selling to your customer. Again, I go back to the first point that I made. You want to build a business that you want to give to your children. So do you want to give a business to your children with products that are definitely, you've cheated and you've put it in the wrong box and you're making up stories why to sell them? So I wouldn't.
Right.
I would want to buy the best if I can. So it takes adjustments. And I understand. Again, I know I've been to tint shops that's the market. People come in and haggle and they want the cheapest because somebody else down the street is doing exactly that. But a successful shop should be able to turn that.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens slowly. You might not be able to make someone pay $200 for when somebody down the road is doing 100.
Mm-hmm.
But you should be able to show and prove that, you know what, I can charge 150 instead of 100.
Right.
And here's why you're better off paying me the 50.
Right. Right. If you're able to add that additional value and convey that information to the customer, then you're going to get that higher price. You should stand your ground on that price, and because, like you said many times, the other direction it's a completely losing battle. You know.
Yeah, you again, just common sense, right? That there is a lower limit. There's so much you can go down. You know, when you're at $100 and you're spending, again, I don't know, $25 for the film, and you're paying the installer $30. Well, you have $30 margin.
Right.
That's it. There's no magic. You can squeeze that down, and now you're charging 80. That means your margin is 20.
Right.
It's just.
And now, like, I feel like no better time than now to go through every one of your product and service offerings and figure out what your margin actually is, and make sure that your margin makes sense to you. And because I think what can happen a lot of times is if you don't know your numbers, you may not really realize your overall costs and how your rent factors into how many tint jobs you do and so on. And you know, as you're going and you're working on cash flow, you don't necessarily know how much you make sometimes. I think that can be kind of common, and you're just working.
So that goes to what we were initially talking about. This is the time to optimize. You really need to dig in, understand where your company is, where you're making your money, which product is the most profitable. Let me switch to flat glass. The same issue with flat glass. I see people bidding and they say, okay, Pierre, I'm going to bid on this project. They're looking at 3 different products and, you know, the low end, middle, and, well, I'm going to charge $7 or $8 for the high end, and then 6 for the middle and 3 for the lowest. And I said, okay, is that your change on product cost? No, but you know, if I'm giving them, you know, Legacy, which is one of our top of the line films, I want to make money on it. Like, but it doesn't make sense. You know, why are you charging 3 times more for installation of the same for a product, where if you charge 20% more, you've already made 20% more money. So 9 out of 10, what happens? They quote so high on their high end, nobody wants that.
Right.
And they'll eventually drop to the basic aluminum film, and they end up making 50 cents a square foot instead of making $1 or making $1.50. Because they wanted to make $5 because they're buying an expensive film. So if I'm buying an expensive film, I got to make $5 a square foot more.
Yeah.
So I think everybody needs to really take a step back and say, how can I optimize? Because I get it. It's very, it's enticing when you walk into a nice home and you say, okay, you know what, I can charge $10 instead of $5, and I'll be making an extra $2,000 on this project. It's great. But at the same time, you're risking of losing everything, or you're losing, instead of charging $10 for the super expensive product, now you're going to end up charging $3 or $4 for a product that now you're making much less money.
Yeah.
So,
well,
again, whatever my advices are worth, or hopefully it's helpful to someone.
I definitely think it is. I think you hit a lot of nails right on the head, and I just want to thank you again for taking the time to do this tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if there's any other questions or about product and stuff, let me know. I'll be more than to discuss it at another time.
Cool. Well, Pierre, thank you again, and thanks for everybody for watching. We'll be back on Tuesday, same time, same place. See you then. Have a great weekend.